it doesn't matter who believes in you if you don't believe in yourself first, right? And so that's where that belief, that deep rooted belief and conviction comes from. And it was interesting because people leading up to the 50, they were like, media would ask me these questions and they were like, what do you think your chances are of finishing this thing? And I was legit confused with the question because in my mind, it was 300% that this was going to happen. And that's the level of belief and conviction that I had going into it. And so I ask people from stage all the time, I'm like, where's your level of belief and conviction in what you're doing? Because you really can't waver, and you can't be flippantly influenced by individuals from the outside looking in. And so belief and conviction is a huge thing. In fact, one of the greatest gifts that anybody could apply to their lives is to not care what anybody else thinks. You know, one of my favorite books is Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Mm-hmm. Like, so good. And in fact, I think Mel Robbins' new book, Let Them, is that same concept, but just eloquently put a little bit better. But that book, The Subtle Art, is so good. And if people read that and applied that to their life, like, it would change their lives. And I see Atomic Habits. I think that's another one. Because on our journey, like, you have to have habits and rituals and routines and all those things. That's a timeless thing that you have.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre. Today, I have the Iron Cowboy, James Lawrence. This gentleman has achieved many, many things in mental toughness and in physical kind of challenges. And one of his most famous is doing 101 Ironman distance races in 101 consecutive days. This is like inconceivable to do. How to have the mental toughness, the grit, the systems and structures to be able to do that. How to change the relationship with the bully in your head when you're trying to negotiate against your own growth. How to do difficult things, how to swing yourself out of balance in order to be able to move your life forward and then come back into balance from season to season to season. We'll talk about all these things and more. I think you're going to love it. So with no further ado, let's jump into my conversation with James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. So James Lawrence, how are you?
What's up, brother? I'm fantastic.
And I gotta ask a question. So how many world records do you own currently? Do you know?
My older records have been broken, which actually excites me.
Yeah.
And so, as of right now, I don't think I own any.
Really?
Yeah.
But how many have you owned at one point in the time? Four?
Four. Yeah.
I thought you broke like 50 of them or something when you did the 100.
So while we were doing the 100, because the record at the time was 50, every single day. So day 51 was a new record. Day 52 was a world record. Day 53 was a world record. So every single day we got to break a record.
So I want to get into so much of this. And I'm excited to talk to you because I love the idea of discipline because I don't have much myself.
Ooh, I'm going to challenge you so hard on this.
I know.
You have insane amounts of discipline.
I know, but in areas of my life, I have what I call blank spots, where
I'll tell you why.
In
you
nutrition,
have blank spots.
I blank out.
Oh man, we're going to have so much fun. This is exactly my passion right now.
Oh, good.
I'm so deep into this right now.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. Yeah.
Well, so
I'm going to prove you wrong. It's one of my favorite things.
Please,
let's go.
Reprogram my mind.
Yeah. I'm going to change the way you think, and I'm going to put you on a path that'll change your life.
Good. I love it. So, and I think what's true, our audience are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, work from home people.
That's
primarily.
That's who I am in my
people
core.
Are interested in personal development, people interested in marketing, business.
Yeah.
And as solopreneurs also, they're not as disciplined as they would be in a job. If they're in a job, there's discipline built in, but then they work for themselves and it all
you just said it
spins out of control. Yep. So they have to be able to create different things. But I so admire what you've done. I watched both of your documentaries. I watched them in reverse order.
Okay.
I watched the 100 Ironman in 100 consecutive days. Yes, and then you did one more. Yes, sir. What in the world, buddy? We'll talk about that. And then I saw the 51 and all the drama in that, trying to do 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. The logistics of that was
Yeah.
bananas.
Well, and I think that's the one thing that most people overlook. Like initially when they hear that headline or they watch the documentary, they're like, oh my gosh, this was a physical and then a mental pursuit. But those that are really savvy or can kind of pick up on it, it's the logistical side that was crazy.
Yeah.
It was the chaos that came from the enormity of the United States, the complexity of putting on 50 different events in 50 days when you're averaging 4 hours of sleep a night with 5 little kids, ages 5 to 12. New environment, new people, new chaos, new confusion, new weather, new roads, uncharted air. Like just the logistics were insane.
Yeah.
Just that alone should have derailed anybody, right?
A friend of mine whose son did 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed him, but he did it. Got it done. You're running in Antarctica, and it was all the planes going from continent to continent. Yeah. That was the thing that wore him out.
Yeah. The travel.
Yeah. The travel. So you're married, 5 kids.
Yes, sir.
And I saw some interesting things. So I want to get into everything, but I do want to get a little bit of background, if that's okay.
100%.
Were you always an athlete?
Yeah, I was. Grew up an athlete. It was a passion of mine. I grew up with 3 sisters, no brothers. Neither of my parents were athletic. And so for me to come out of that space was remarkable. But really, I grew up in Canada. Mm-hmm. And so people all instantly assume, oh, you're a hockey player.
Well, in Canada, it was funny. I mentioned you yesterday in a talk that I did here in Las Vegas, and a bunch of them were Canadian, and they're like, "Oh, that's our guy."
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great.
That's awesome, man. But in Canada, if you don't start out of the womb on skates, you're behind. And my parents weren't into sports, and that never happened. And so I didn't get into sports until really, even at elementary school. Like I lived for field day. Like that's what I wanted to do, and running laps around the schoolyard, and it was just something I got enjoyment out of. And then once I got into junior high, whatever sport was on the table, whatever season it was, I was playing. Tried out for every team, made every team, and that's really what raised me was coaches and teammates. I was never really home.
What was the sport that captured your imagination the most? When you're growing up in school.
Yeah, wrestling.
Wrestling.
Yeah. So I started wrestling in 7th grade.
Those wrestlers were tough, man.
I truly 100% attribute the journey that I've been on to those wrestling days.
A lot of mental toughness.
And what I learned from those days. Because wrestling is one of those sports like, dude, if you lose, it's your fault.
Yeah.
If you win, it's your fault. Like I can't kick it out to a dude to hit a 3-pointer in the late seconds of the game, right? It's on me. And then it's full accountability. There's nobody coming to save you on the mat. And it's literally, what am I going to do in this moment? And your preparation is right there in front of you. And then if you lose, okay, now what are you going to do to overcome that moment? And so it's this insane mental toughness training grounds. I believe, like you said, I've got 5 kids and I've watched this generation kind of grow up. And if I could instill one law in the universe, it would be that every kid has to do some type of combat training, meaning fighting or military or whatever it is, just because the discipline, the respect, the control, everything that you learn from those modalities, I think are just invaluable lessons that every young person should have to go through.
And the confidence. Yeah.
100%. It is a huge confidence builder.
Yeah.
To overcome those adversities and the feeling of being in, we'll call it the squared circle. And it's, again, nobody's coming to save you. And if you can overcome that moment and come out victorious and they raise your hand, there's very few feelings that trump that. In fact, 2 years ago now, I was invited to do this boxing fight, a charity event for boxing. And I'm not a boxer. I've never boxed before. I've never done it. And they were like, we would like to invite you to be the main event. And they pair you up with someone that has similar skill level and weight and all this stuff. And I had an 8-week training camp to do this thing. And during the training camp, you have to in US boxing, you have to get enough hours and training before you can actually spar. And so it came my time to spar. And they're like, James, you're up. And I'm like, okay, here we go. I got my headgear on, all this stuff. And they're like, Anna, in the ring. And I'm like, Anna? That doesn't sound like a dude. And it was a female fighter. And it completely rocked my world. I was like, one, I have 4 daughters. And so I really had a hard time hitting a female. But it wasn't that it was a female. I quickly recognized that I had a hard time hitting a person. And I had to go through this entire process of gamifying boxing, that I wasn't trying to hurt this person. I was just trying to like score points and do all this stuff. And so it was a very emotional 8-week training camp for me. And then fast forward to the day of the fight. I have never felt something, and I've crossed hundreds of finish lines. I've had many moments, all these things. That moment when you land the shot and you knock him out of the ring and the entire stadium erupts. Like there's been no moment in my career.
Wow.
That duplicated that moment. And that's the moment that you can't conjure up in training, or you have to have that life experience to go do it. And it was just, I never want to do it again.
You just did the one.
I just did the one. Me and Mayweather, we're undefeated.
Yes.
So it's easy.
Why not?
Yes. Yeah, why not go out on top, right?
Yeah.
So it was a really cool experience that I got to have, but full circle, wrestling and martial arts and all that. I think it's just a gift for people to gain that confidence and that discipline. Nobody can ever take that moment away from me. And it was just electric.
I've heard people say if they could pick one for their children, it would be jujitsu.
Yep. Jiu-jitsu is a great one, because you're not like, jiu-jitsu is all about control, and it's all about that discipline. It's controlling your emotions to not want to strike and all these things. You're using their momentum and controlling that individual. So I've never done jujitsu, but jujitsu is a lot like wrestling, which is what my foundation was. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I love it. I have my son doing Muay Thai boxing right now. Mm-hmm. And just what he initially hated it, but he's got a nasty left kick, and he's getting to the point now where it's building his confidence. And he's a big lacrosse player. And we're like, bro, this is going to help your footwork. It's going to help your timing. It's going to help. He wants to go D1. And so what he's learning in Muay Thai boxing is translating into the skills that he needs in lacrosse, not just physically, but mentally. Mm-hmm. To be able to stand there in front of an opponent and be calm enough to take a shot and then advance. Well, that's going to serve him really well in lacrosse, where he's got someone that's preventing him to get to the goal, and he's going to absorb that and still move forward. It's like life, right? The shots are going to come, and we have to be able to absorb that and still have the courage to move forward.
Yeah. And the other thing I've seen in elite athletes like yourself is the discipline first, of course, the passion around it. But your relationship with food is completely different than normal people.
It has to be.
Your relationship is more like fuel, because you're thinking about what it's going to do to prepare you for something. Or in wrestling, you need to prepare the other way and make weight. Yeah, cut yourself down and add.
I can't tell you how bad,
how brutal that is.
How from the outside looking in, people just don't understand what it's like to lose 20 pounds in 24 hours. It's an insane process, but it also goes to show you how incredible the body is. Mm-hmm. And how you can. I've seen people totally transform their appearance just with food. Mm-hmm. How they approach it, their relationship with it, how their ultimately their relationship and their belief systems around food can completely change your life.
Well, I have a dysfunctional relationship with food. So
I think society does. Did you know that 40% of the US population is obese?
Really?
Not overweight, obese. 47%, that's half of us. And again, not overweight, obese. Mm-hmm. Half of the country. That's a pandemic.
Yeah. Processed food, all of that stuff. It's terrible. Being addicted to different
so I think
things.
RFK is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think what he's doing, gutting the system, is people hate it, but it's just because
something's got to change.
Something has to change. We are literally killing ourselves.
You could eat your way through Europe, no problem. Compared to, seems like the same food. It's not the same.
It's not the same food. It's interesting because my wife struggles with Hashimoto's and some gluten insensitivities. And anytime we go over to Europe, guess what?
No problem.
She feels amazing.
Yeah.
She feels amazing. And it is 100% the food that is put in front of us in the United States. So, but knowing that, you can also make great choices here in the United States. Those options are there. It's not the quickest. It's not the most convenient. It's not the easiest. And like anything, making those decisions takes sacrifice and effort and some pre-planning, all the hard things that are preventing people from really living a phenomenal life.
So you get through school, you excel in all these different sports.
Yeah.
Right. You're a wrestler, football?
Nope.
Baseball?
Nope.
What other sports you play?
So wrestling, volleyball, track, rugby, badminton, curling. I was talking from Canada, right? So all these like kind of obscure things. I said track and field.
Yep.
Just everything, whatever season it was, we did it. But by the time I hit high school, I was like, okay, I love volleyball and wrestling's amazing. And so they were opposite seasons. So my 10th grade, I did both, but then 11, 12, I was all in on wrestling. That's all I did. I joined the club, the travel team, everything. And just, I went from being a mat mop in 7th grade to my senior year being undefeated and winning the state championship.
Nice. Good for you.
So really, really cool transformational journey for me and who I became along those ways. And just the bonds you create with teammates and coaches and all those things. In fact, my coach in high school was incredibly influential on me. And he's now really sick. And I had an opportunity to go visit him and thank him this last trip to Calgary. And it was just this real emotional thing for me because he raised me kind of, you know,
I understand.
And, he had to have his leg amputated and all these crazy things. He's really sick. So it was kind of sad for me to see, but it was really good for me because it was an opportunity for me to thank him. Yeah. For the just pouring into us young men, as we were trying to figure out life.
How far did you go with your wrestling before it was like, because that's not a highly paid natural path.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to figure out MMA or something, which is still not a highly paid natural path.
Well, and back then, I mean, we're talking, I graduated in 94.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't, I mean, this was back when UFC was no weight classes, you know, Tank Abbott was going against, the smallest. I mean, it was just crazy, no holds barred kind of stuff. And that didn't interest me at all. And so I didn't go to college. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. It's who I am in my core. Like my dad was a blue collar firefighter worker. And then my grandmother immigrated from Poland and was this just passionate entrepreneur. And I watched both of those and I was like, my goodness, I could have the freedom. Because my dad was like very risk adverse. You work for 40 years, you take a pension. Like that's just how it is. In fact, he's in his 70s now. And I asked him the other day, I was like, hey, Dad, what's one thing you would change? And he's like, I take more risks. Yep. I would take more risks. And I'm glad he said that because he and I don't align in terms of like the path that I took. Just because it just didn't make sense to him.
Still today?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
It's just so
it obviously worked out.
Yeah, it did. And he's proud of me. But it's just the way he was raised in his environment. Like you don't take those risks. Now he can appreciate what I did now. I guess now it does make sense.
Sure. But during the journey, it was really bad decision making on my part. Yeah. In his opinion. Yeah. Isn't it funny? You were one of how many kids? 4. So I was one of 5. Yeah. A child can grow up in a household, same parents, same influences, same everything, and make completely different choices. I am baffled how different I am from my siblings. Right. So some people would say, well, because my parents were conservative, that's why I'm conservative. I'm risk averse because my parents were risk averse. And other people say my parents were risk averse. I decided to take more risks. Yeah. Same house. Same, and completely different beliefs. Yeah. It's like, who influences that? I don't know. But well, for me, again, it was my grandmother. She was big into the network marketing space and built a monster organization. And she was big into personal development. And what was the company? Nature Sunshine. Nature Sunshine. Yeah. She was the #1 distributor in Canada for 50 years. Wow. And my mom and grandma got to see the world I would go to my grandma's house and she just had this cabinet of silver. Yeah. I mean, of like crystal awards, just everything imaginable. And so I kind of grew up watching that. But my grandmother was this entrepreneur and this massive dreamer. And I remember back in the day, I was really young. I was in junior high and I would always, my grandma was always listening to these cassette tapes and it was Les Brown and Jack Canfield and all these things. And I thought I was just like this
this bad kid because I would sneak these cassette tapes, and I remember I had this little recorder cassette player that I would put the cassette in and I'd listen to while I was going to sleep. And so early in my journey, I was listening and consuming this personal development stuff. And it's really that was the environment. That's the one thing I did different from my siblings.
Yeah.
And so it was those guys and those mentors and those individuals that influenced me. And it was because of my grandmother. And so I was taking all these personal development courses and things as a really young individual.
So grandma became an influence, gave you permission to kind of like explore something.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you got attached to some other good voices. For me, it was Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, Og Mandino, all of those people. And I got to meet all those people. It was
so cool.
It was kind of an amazing experience after having them in my car so many hours of all this different types of stuff. So you get introduced to all of that. But was your entrepreneurial journey always athletics, or was it ever other things?
I was always other things before athletics because I didn't see, I'm not gifted in any capacity other than showing up. and so for me, there wasn't, I'm an average 5'8" white Canadian at best. And so there wasn't a clear path for me in athletics or sports. And in fact, I remember my wrestling coach, he got really mad at the room because people were like goofing off and not doing the things. And he looked right at me and he said, this guy right here, he's going to make it because he shows up and he works hard every single day. And he flat out said, he's like, he's not the most talented kid in the room, but he's going to be better than all of you guys. And I was like, that really stuck with me the whole time because I was like, oh, okay, you don't have to have talent. You just have to show up and work and do the work. And all of a sudden you'll rise up above the other people. And I did, I rose up. And so for me, the path wasn't through athletics. I remember as a kid, I just so badly wanted this gold watch that the Calgary Herald was putting out in the newspapers, and you had to deliver papers for 5 years in order to get this gold watch. And once I got the watch, it was gold plated, and so I was really disappointed. But in Canada, it's freezing cold in the winters, and I was up at 3:30 in the morning. And I had to lie and put the paper route under my sister's name because she was older and I couldn't get it. And so, but for 5 years, I was out there grinding and being an entrepreneur. And I remember in the winter, my dad got us an opportunity with the city to shovel walks of abandoned homes and all these things. So from early age, I was an entrepreneur. I didn't go to college because I wanted to go down the entrepreneur route. And I saw the United States as a big opportunity for me. I didn't see myself thriving in what it was in Canada. My options in Canada was a bartender or on the oil rigs, and neither of those things excited. I've never had alcohol, and I am not a rig pig, and so neither of those paths really got me excited. And so I came to the States. I had one friend in Utah that I visited, and ended up meeting my wife. Didn't go home. And
how old are you?
That was in 1999. I was 23 years old.
Okay.
And I've shared this story a bunch, but I'll share it real quick here. The way I got from Calgary to Utah was Calgary's world famous for what's called the Calgary Stampede.
Yep.
And they were holding a contest called the Midway Marathon, and it was to see who could ride the Ferris wheel for 10 days. And so that seemed like a great idea to me at the time. And so I got on the Ferris wheel, and lots of things happened, but fast forward to the end, I sat on the Ferris wheel for 10 days. I won the $10,000, and I hitchhiked a ride from Calgary to Utah. And I literally never went home, met my wife, and we've celebrated 25 years of marriage. But after wrestling, and then before coming to the States, I found an insane passion for golf. And I wanted to be a golf professional. I saw that as that's a sport where if you put in the time and do the work and have any level of athleticism, there's a pathway for me. There was no path for the NBA, zero path in the NFL. Like all these things weren't realistic for me. I'd never been on the diamond for baseball. And so I saw golf as maybe an avenue that I could be a professional. So I worked really hard, came down to the States, saw that this was even a bigger opportunity. Got my first job at a golf course in Utah, Thanksgiving Point, and golfed every single day, and met my wife and started a little family. We had 2 little girls, and I quickly realized, all right, I'm good, but the gap between good and great and amazing is huge. And I now have a responsibility because I chose to have children. And so I had to go get a job. And as an entrepreneur, I looked around and it was booming in the real estate industry. And so I went and started my own mortgage brokerage. I got my mortgage license. I got my real estate license. And then I just started doing mortgages. Well, '08 happened.
Yeah. It was probably going good until
It was going amazing.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. I had investment properties. We were thriving. The only problem was I was miserable. Mortgage industry is a thankless job. It wasn't my passion. It was just an avenue to feed my family. It was money. It was money. And as you know, you chase money, and that's not a good path to go. Yeah. Once you have money, you realize that money doesn't bring you happiness
until you don't have enough. You know,
it's
a problem when you don't have enough.
100%. Yeah, money provides security and comfort and takes care of the necessities to allow you to pursue other things. But at the time, you know, I was unhappy and wealthy, but unhappy. And then '08 hit, and I had 5 kids at that time. And you remember the moment they knock on your door and take away your home, and you've got nothing and you're homeless. And I was, you know, I massive passion for golf, but left that and was really getting into triathlon and the community. And I loved it. It was something my wife and I could do together. And if you notice too, the sports that I chose was wrestling, golf, and triathlon. And they're all solo pursuits. And all of them is extreme accountability on you, whether you're winning or losing. And for me, all of them are very intense mental grinds, which again, I love. And so I just started on this journey of doing triathlons in the community, and we lost everything. And I started to get really good locally and was competing and winning.
But that's not paying any bills.
No. And so we were trying to find a path. I was doing odd end jobs. I was working construction sites. I was hanging cabinets in the middle of the night. I was taking sales. I was doing everything I could just to put food on the table. And then started to gain some notoriety in triathlon and became a coach and started to coach athletes. And then as an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, how do I separate myself from the competition? This is now going to be a marketing thing, and I got to solve that problem. And so I was like, man, I wonder what some world records are that I could maybe tackle. Right. That's where my mind went. And so the first word, I was like, okay, I need experience in order to really go big. And at that time, I couldn't even conceptualize the 50, the 100. It wasn't even on the table.
Right.
And then I broke the world record for the most half Ironmans in a year, all official events. And that was in 2010.
How many?
It was 22. It was 30 in 22 weeks is what we ended up doing. And it, excuse me. And that created some momentum and a belief system in us that more was possible. And then I looked at the Ironman world record. And at the time, it was 20 Ironmans, all official events, kind of globally. And it was held by a gentleman in Belgium. And I looked at, obviously, our finances, and there wasn't enough. But both my wife and I were like, man, we really feel like this is the path we're supposed to go on. We don't know why.
And she was running them too?
No. She was raising the family.
I got it.
She was raising the family. I was coaching.
But she's an athlete.
She is an athlete. She's done 2 Ironmans, 10 half Ironmans, trains every single day. Loves it. And so we looked at this and said, okay, I think we can do 30 Ironmans in a year. And we boldly made
Tell everybody what an Ironman is.
Okay, yeah. So an Ironman is a swim, bike, run race. Ironman's just a brand. So this is actually a long distance triathlon. So there's sprint, Olympic, half and full, doubles each time. The full distance triathlon is quote unquote an Ironman. It's commonly known as that. And so what an Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 3.8K, 112 mile bike ride, 180K, and a full marathon run, 26.2 miles or 42K, I believe. And so it's 140.6 miles, 220K. And we boldly made the announcement after we looked at everything and what was possible that we were going to do 30 Ironmans through 11 countries. And we made that announcement. We were going to break the world record by 10. And it was shocking that people came out and they said, 1, you can't do it. And 2, why don't you just do 21? Because that would be a new world record. And I kind of like tilted my head and I was like, well, I'm not trying to break the record. I'm trying to set a new standard. And why would I limit myself to what somebody else did in their belief system, but not to what I believe is actually possible? And so we did. We set on 30 and we just started to tackle that journey. And ultimately broke that world record, which
how old were you when you did that?
So I would have been 36.
Okay.
36-ish.
36. And you're just kind of making ends meet.
Yeah,
in
making
between.
ends meet, struggling. No, we thought, okay, if we break 2 world records, that'll put us on the map. It'll explode our coaching business. People will care, right?
Did it?
All these things.
Did it do
No,
any of those things?
nothing. And that's when
Did you get any free shoes or something? from
Sure.
somebody?
Yeah,
You
yeah. I got free
t-shirts
shoes.
and
I got a bike,
you got
some
swag?
nutrition, yeah, a hat. None of that. None of that puts food on the table, brother. None of that.
The kids aren't going to eat supplements.
Yeah, no,
that
they're
you
not.
get? All right.
And so that's when everything changed for us. And we were like, I was watching this guy named Dean Karnassus, and he's kind of the OG in this kind of stuff. The original OG would be like Terry Fox. I don't know if you know his story.
Sure I do. He ran
across Canada. Yeah, there's a 30 for 30 on him. If you haven't
I've
dove in his story, it's incredible. Terry Fox. So he's really the OG. But then there was Dean Karnassus, and Dean, I was watching him on Good Morning America. He was an ultra runner. He was painted as this incredibly gifted athlete, invincible runner, and he did 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states. And he had a book. And he had all these things. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to be able to do that. I want to have that type of influence and impact. And so I looked at my wife, and it was so funny because it was actually race 27 of 30 in that world record. Like we were in the deep of it, and we had no money. We were struggling. We were doing whatever we could. And I looked at my wife and I said, we need to do 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And she was like, you're freaking insane. There's no way we're doing that. And so I was like, okay, I need to put that idea on pause. I need to finish this world record and then I'll revisit it. Cause I hadn't abandoned the idea, but my timing was a little off on trying to like present this idea. And eventually she came around, and after we talked about it and
after you healed
chaos,
a little bit
after the chaos had settled down, and we started to put together what's now known as the 50.
Yeah. But you broke that world record.
Yes.
In the meantime.
Yeah. Broke that world record. And then it took us 2 years from the end of that world record to the 50 to plan the logistics, to financially be prepared enough for it. And actually during that time after the economic crash and trying to do all these things, we were evicted from the next property that we were at. And now we're homeless again. And I was coaching an athlete who was a police officer of the town. And he knocked on my door and he's like, hey, I understand, this is happening. And he's like, my mother, she has Alzheimer's and she needs a full-time caregiver. Would you guys be willing to move into her basement, care for her in exchange for rent? And we were like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible opportunity for us. And so we got to live rent-free, bill-free for 2 years in exchange for caring for this elderly lady, which allowed us to save the money to then self-fund and bootstrap the 50.
So I got to ask a few questions about this because there's so many parallels between what you're doing and a person in an early stage of their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Everybody in your world outside of your wife had to be saying, I'm glad you're an athlete.
Yeah.
Son, I'm glad that you're out there running around chasing your dream. And, it's great. I'm glad you're in shape. Glad you got good cardio.
Yeah.
But you need to go get a job.
Yep.
Do this on the weekends if you need to, because obviously this is not working.
Yeah.
They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, not getting a different result. Well, son, you're doing the same thing over and over and over. Dad had to be loud.
Literally.
Right. Dad had to be loud at that point. What are you chasing? You got this record. It's going to hold for a few days. You're beating up your body. Kids need to see you. I mean, people had to be piling guilt on you like crazy, saying, tell us what the end game is.
Yeah.
And sell us that once you do this, because you did the other one and nobody cared, you're going to do this next one. Is anybody going to care? Yeah. So what was going on in your head and what was going on in your circle?
Yeah.
I'm super curious, what support you were getting.
Zero.
And what resistance you were getting.
Yeah. Zero support, lots of resistance. I was the biggest failure on the table. And to be honest with you, it was my wife that took the biggest brunt of it. Because she was getting why are you staying with him? He's not supporting you guys. He's, from the outside looking in, it was like he's traveling the world. I went through 11 countries to break that record. You guys are barely making it financially. You can't buy all these things. And it was extremely challenging, but both my wife and I never felt that way.
Hmm.
And her kind of perspective and what she would say was, I'm no different than supporting my husband who's going through 7 years of medical school.
Hmm.
And although that path seems more clear, both my wife and I had the deepest feeling of, we don't know why, and it's okay, but stay the course. And I think that ends up being a gift in life, because this isn't my quote, but I think it's actually Tony Robbins. He says something to the effect of, you were never in control. And so stop trying to control the outcomes. And life is about inputs, the moments that we're in now. And the person 6 months ago is to blame for who we are today. And both her and I knew, we said this over and over to each other. We have no idea why we're doing this, but we know this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And it's going to be bigger than we ever think. In fact, this past weekend, I was speaking for the Lakers this is such a mind blow to me that this is where we're at in our journey. And we were out on a walk between sessions, and she said, we couldn't have imagined this day. And this is, and for her and I both, we don't think we're even at, I don't think we've hit a tipping point for what we're doing. And we're wildly happy with where we are in the journey, but we think there's so much more greatness to come. And I think it's just deep down knowing, I think as people, we've stopped listening to our gut and our intuition, and we're so busy influenced, and we're impatient for the outcome. And if you have the feeling that you're doing the right thing and you're showing up with honesty and integrity, dude, who cares what anybody else thinks? My wife and I were happy.
There's never a time.
We're broke and happy.
Yeah, I get it. I can relate on 100 levels. Here's what I see a bunch of people do. They chase their dream. They get pressure from others because they're not showing results. It looks like they're working hard. They're sacrificing time with the family, sacrifice relationship, health, distraction on a potential other career, all those other types of things. And many of them get talked into this. It's noble to pay the bills for your family, put a roof over their head. And that can be your new dream. Let go of that other stuff. That can be your new dream. You don't need to be living on the edge always, because I'm very similar to you as far as something in me is not afraid at all of risk. I don't know when that flipped,
sure,
but I have a huge risk tolerance that other people think I'm insane.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I get that all the time.
Yeah. So was there ever a time where you're like, one of those nights laying in bed, looking at the ceiling, staying in this place, this house where your family's caretaking for this lady, going, am I being selfish here? Am I sacrificing my family in pursuit of my dream? Is this about me? Is this about ego? Is this about, because I don't really even have a plan. I just think that something good will happen.
Yeah.
When I started my business here, it was 2009, and I didn't have a business plan. I had no plan. I was just going to start putting content out in the world, and didn't even really think about where it was going to go. Specifically, I just knew it was going to go somewhere. So
that's the gift.
Yeah.
That's the gift that most people shy away from or can't see that it's a gift. Sitting here today, having accomplished everything we've done, I still have no idea what the end goal is, and I don't care. And I'm just going to show up. I can only control today and the inputs that I do today. And whatever happens after that moment, I'm so grateful for.
Right.
Because every day becomes a new gift. And I just know that my family is the tightest unit we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I would never take away the struggle. I think my kids are so incredible today because of the difficulties, the trials, a front row seat to chaos, confusion, but they also had a front row seat to adventure and passion and love. And it really brought us together as a family. And a safer path, I don't think we would have had that bond, that unity. My daughter's 22 now and runs my entire business because she said to me, Dad, nobody cares about our brand more than I do. Yeah. And I'm going to end up with all your money anyway. So I'll take good care of it.
Yeah. You can tell her in the documentary, she's a take charge girl.
Yeah, Lucy's unbelievable. She's actually pregnant right now, and we're going to be grandparents in
Nice.
July.
Congratulations.
So we're really excited about it. Yeah.
So, all right. We can do as many blows as you'd like, but you ultimately set your sights on doing 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. Logistically, bananas as far as that is concerned. You complete that. There's a little bit of controversy about it. Some people would like, the internet sniping at you for this or that or this.
I think
or
that's
that.
when you've made it.
Yeah, right. And so you decide, I'm going to shut them up completely. I'm going to do the outrageous thing. And I talked with a few friends of mine who are cycling and kind of cardio, high-end
enthusiasts.
That's the right word. I mean, they're not professional, but they got resting heart rates of 45.
Sure.
And they got an
HRV. They're my people
of 90.
Yeah.
And they're paying attention to this stuff. They're
Sure.
cycling. They ski up mountains. They don't ski down mountains. Those types of people.
Backcountry.
And I mentioned I'm going to be talking with this gentleman who did 100 Ironmans in 100 consecutive days. And they're just like, yeah, wow, I've heard about this guy, but it's inconceivable to a very serious enthusiast
Sure.
that you did this. What I'm curious is in that whole journey through that, and your documentary is called Conquer
100.
Conquer 100.
Yep.
I watched that first, and then I watched the 50,
which is Iron Cowboy.
The 50 documentary. The 100 for me was so much more interesting.
Oh, for sure.
The other one logistically was really challenging, but the 100 one was just absolutely amazing. There has to be, when you go talk to people around the world, what's the lessons that came out of this experience? How does a entrepreneur or somebody in life apply these lessons that you've learned in this experience? Because the learning is in the doing. You've done things that people haven't done, at least at the time. And there's new mountains to climb. But what were all the lessons? And I'll just say one that I saw in the documentary, that the rule that you have in your family. Do you know which one I'm referring to?
I don't.
The rule that you have in your family is if anybody in your family decides they're going to start something,
You have to finish it.
they have to finish it.
We don't have rules. We have expectations. And if you start something, you finish it.
You finish it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, my family gave me all kinds of outs. If I started something, if it's not your thing, okay, and then move to the next thing. And I became a professional at starting over. I was so good.
I love the phrase, if you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So talk about that rule and what that's done, but and then any of the other lessons, because I'm fascinated.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many timeless lessons that come from this. And in fact, that's why I'm approaching 1,000 stages and have spoken in over 57 countries, is because it doesn't matter what your event or conference theme is, we fit in it. And I can pull something from our journey of these timeless principles. And it's about belief systems. It's about that belief and that conviction. It's about hope. It's about the understanding that I get to. It's these.
Well, break each one down.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't matter who believes in you if you don't believe in yourself first, right? And so that's where that belief, that deep rooted belief and conviction comes from. And it was interesting because people leading up to the 50, they were like, media would ask me these questions, and they were like, "What do you think your chances are of finishing this thing?" And I was legit confused with the question, because in my mind it was 300% that this was going to happen. And that's the level of belief and conviction that I had going into it. And so I ask people from stage all the time, I'm like, where's your level of belief and conviction in what you're doing? Because you really can't waver, and you can't be flippantly influenced by individuals from the outside looking in. And so belief and conviction is a huge thing. In fact, one of the greatest gifts that anybody could apply to their lives is to not care what anybody else thinks. One of my favorite books is Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so good. And in fact, I think Mel Robbins' new book, Let Them, is that same concept, but just eloquently put a little bit better. But that book, The Subtle Art, is so good. And if people read that and applied that to their life, like, it would change their lives. And I see Atomic Habits. I think that's another one. because on our journey, like you have to have habits and rituals and routines and all those things. That's a timeless thing that you have. And then one of my other favorite books is Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill. Have you read that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh. If there's one read, the other one that's a mandatory read for me is, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's escaping me. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Those two, those four, Man's Search for Meaning, Outwitting the Devil, Atomic Habits, and The Subtle Art. Those are unbelievable reads. If someone read those four and applied those principles, their life would be insanely different. Like just those four books. And then there's like a stack of other incredible books that you could read. But the Outwitting the Devil one is fascinating to me. One, it was a manuscript written in the 1930s that it's relevant today. But it's all about fear. It's all about the conversations we're having with ourselves. To me, life is about winning those conversations and overcoming fear. You know this, our physical reaction to fear and excitement is the same. It's how we choose to look at the experience that we're having. Are we scared of it or are we excited for it, right? Our physical response is exactly the same. And so through this journey, everything is, and one of our principles is how you look and navigate through the circumstances that are happening to you. And that's a gift if you can figure out how to do that and win these conversations that you're having with ourselves. I do a whole bit on stage about the bully inside our head. And for the longest time, I was trying to silence the bully.
Talk about that. Go deep on that particular issue.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so big. Because here's what I will tell you. For me, I'm really, really good at rationalizing away from something I should be doing. I'm really good at justifying. Yeah. It's just like if I set an alarm to get up at a certain time to start off my day good, and I wake up and I'm still tired. You know, sleep is important. Mm-hmm. You know, so they say
you can always talk yourself around.
Yeah, I'm so good at negotiating with myself. Yeah. If, when the going gets tough, I'm like, maybe we can start tomorrow. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe it's a little bit too much. So I'm amazing at talking myself out of stuff that I should be doing. So I still to this day have to use mental tricks in order to get me to do what I said I was going to do. And most of it revolves around accountability, or either I'll treat things as a project because my mind accepts a project that has a beginning, middle, and an end. Mm-hmm. Or I'll create an accountability structure that makes it impossible for me not to, where I have to. I don't have a choice. I create this whole cocoon around me that'll force me to do stuff. Yeah, you were forcing your cocoon to do stuff while you were doing your 100 and everything else. Everybody else was saying, "Oh, you just had a crash. It's okay. Yeah. You can go. Oh, your ankle's blown up. You know, you're 5 days in to 100 days. Okay, you know, you have an excuse." Yeah. My brain, I'd be worried about what my brain would do in that moment. It's just like, you know what, you got to accept some realities. Yeah, I want to talk about the bully in our head, and then please, let's dig into a little bit about discipline and what you're talking about there. For me, you know, it's interesting. Nobody talks to you the volume and the amount that you talk to yourself, and you wouldn't be friends with someone that talked to you that way. And so, why do we tolerate it? And in that same vein, you wouldn't not keep a commitment to the people in this room or your spouse or your kids or whatever, but you do all that. You don't keep the commitments to yourself all the time. And so again, why is that? And it's interesting because that bully comes out and it's always at the peak of discomfort or fear. And for some reason, it's the Napoleon Hill, the devil and that conversation. And they're trying to hold you back from being great, because when you become great, you have influence and you can now start to change other people to be great. And so there's a force that's trying to stop us from being great. And for some reason, it's ourselves that is holding us back. And that thought is being put in by a different power. And it's designed to hold us back and keep us from success. And in the early days, I was trying to learn how to silence the bully inside my head. And I've changed the relationship with the bully. He's a buddy of mine now.
And what I mean by that is if I haven't heard from the bully in my head in a long period of time, guess what I'm not doing? Showing up.
Or pushing.
Or trying to make impact or trying to become better. And so now I use the bully as a barometer if I'm showing up in my life and trying to be great. And then it's a skill set, and the skill set only comes from having experiences and being able to navigate these moments. It's about winning those conversations. Did you know science says you can't have two thoughts at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Darkness can't exist in the presence of light. So you can't be negative and positive at the same time. It's impossible. We've proven it. And so the skill set becomes when you start going down the path of fear and conversations and not keeping commitments to ourselves, we have to have a toolkit ready to flip that switch, change the conversations, and then move forward anyways. And that does take us to the point about discipline. Before we came on air, and maybe we were already on air, but you talked about discipline and how you maybe the health space, you don't. And you said, I don't have discipline.
Right.
And most people would say they're not disciplined. And most people would look at me and say, you are insanely disciplined.
Right.
I'm not disciplined. I have systems. I have structure. The reason I was able to be successful on the 50 and the 100, I knew exactly what I was doing every second of every day as the day progressed. There was no question where I needed to be and what I needed to be doing. We removed all of the distractions, all the chaos, all the confusion, and I had the task at hand to do. And so from people looking from the outside looking in, everybody's, oh my gosh, you were insanely disciplined for a quarter of a year. You didn't miss. You showed up every single day. You did the work. So my argument to people that say they don't have discipline, I'm like, do you have a job? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you show up every day on time? Yes, I do 100%. Do you get your projects done? Yeah, I hand them in on time. Are they great? Yeah, they're phenomenal. You still have a job? Yeah, I still have a job. Great, you have discipline. But they don't. They have systems, they have structure, and they have rewards.
Right.
And somebody else is putting those parameters for them.
Yes.
And so if you want to be healthy, if you want to be different physically, it doesn't take discipline. Discipline is a byproduct of what you're doing. The definition of discipline is doing the things you don't want to do on a consistent basis. Who wants to do that? And just like you, when your alarm goes off, you're like, it takes discipline to do that. But if you had a system, like if you could somehow figure out a bed that when your alarm goes off, it flipped over onto its side and dumped you out of your bed, guess what? You'd get up every single day. And that's the system you would do to get out of bed. Mm-hmm. You'd be disciplined, quote unquote, in getting up and every day and starting your life. And so I think discipline is a lie. And I think it just comes out to systems and habits that we create. I mean, even James Clear from Atomic Habits, we fall to the level of our systems.
Yeah. One thing that's helped me, and I don't know if it helps you, it feels like it might have helped you in addition to this, is a target, a very specific goal.
100%.
Because some of these people that just do discipline for discipline's sake, I'm just going to go run. I don't have a finish line. Mm-hmm. And like, why would you hurt yourself beyond hurting yourself if there's no finish line? You know, what I was thinking, and this is a sick thought because, you know, the idea of doing any one element of an Ironman myself, any one of them is, you know, I feel like I would break my body, one of them. And the fact that you did 101 in 101 days and through a lot of pain, you wanted to make the point to 100. You want to make one more point on the 101. But if the other record was 110, you probably would have done 110. You know,
if the record was 110,
yeah,
no, I would have done 150.
There you go. And so a project for me, the project that for mentally, because I'm rebellious against structured authority, right? And I got to be careful of my self-talk, but I'm just being more aware of it. If I see something that has a beginning, middle, and an end, all right, I will do that sprint or that marathon, the beginning, middle, and an end, and then I'll create the systems. I'll create the structure. I'll create the accountability. I'll create the support in order to be able to help me go accomplish that in a short period of time, or some target, whatever it is. Without a target, like does having one of those targets change the way you prepare, like every day, like how you're training and how you're doing everything else? Probably does. Do you work out just to stay in shape, or do you work out for a specific purpose because there's another project coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I do work out to stay in shape because it's important and it's going to give me longevity and opportunities to do and participate in life. I have a race in 3 weeks that I'm excited to do, and that was a target for me. Right?
What's the race?
It's going to be a 5-day mountain bike race in Croatia. And so that gets me up every day and gives me purpose to get to that line. And now once I get to the 5th day and that finish line in Croatia, my sights then shift to a half Ironman in June that we're going to try to qualify for the World Championships in Mont Tremblant, Canada. And so I strategically pick exciting and fun events for me along the way. The goal in life isn't necessarily those targets, but you set up those targets and those finish lines to just help you progress and live and have experiences. Mm-hmm. And again, we've in this personal development space, and again, I don't know who said it, but they're like, you gotta chase down the ultimate version of who you are. I think it was Ed Milet.
Yep.
Chase down the ultimate version of who you are. And I really struggled with that concept. And I love Ed. He's such a dog. But Ed, I'm never going to catch the ultimate version of me. Mm-hmm. Because it's changing.
Yeah.
Because I'm showing up in my life, the person I'm chasing changes. And so now I had to reframe it. And I was like, it's the pursuit of the ultimate version of myself. And I want to get to the finish line right after he gets there. And I want to say, thank you. Thank you for pushing me to show up. I'm going to give him a hug. Yeah. And I'm going to say, you son of a bitch, I never got you. But thank you.
I just wanted to break in for a quick second and ask, what if success in network marketing was just one habit away? The reason most people fail isn't because they aren't capable. It's because they aren't taking the right daily actions. That's where GoPro Insider comes in. It's an average of just 7 minutes a day, but it's every day. You'll get practical coaching from me to help you stop overthinking and start winning. All for as low as $9 a month, just 30 cents a day. Your next breakthrough is waiting. Go to GoProInsider.com and make it happen. Okay? Now back to the conversation. So in this, you pushed your body to extreme limits. And at some point, there's going to be real limits.
Yep.
At some point.
Yep.
You know, they say you can't outrun your age, your time. You can't outrun time. Eventually, time gets everybody.
Sure.
So do you think at some point when you physically say, you know what, the body can't go farther in that particular venue or that particular target, but my mind can go farther. My business can go farther. The number of people I can contribute to their lives can go farther in speaking, in coaching, in influencing the world to be able to understand how limitless they really are.
It becomes impact.
Yeah. And I do think, for me, first stage of my career was about accumulation, getting yourself taken care of, take care of your family. And then it switches over to contribution. Those that stay in accumulation really get kind of jaded and bored and unfulfilled, restless.
Yeah.
But when you flip to contribution, that unlocks all kinds of other interesting things, right?
Yeah. Because if somebody said to me right now, hey, James, go do 200 Ironmans.
Yeah.
I could do it.
You could.
100%.
In a row.
Yeah. But there's 2 questions. What's the sacrifice?
Yeah.
What's the time?
Yeah.
And then what's the benefit?
Right.
And to your point, it would be just, again, that accumulation of statistics and personal accolades, whatever it is, which I'm no longer interested in.
Yeah.
In fact, I was
other than build your brand so you can reach more people.
Right. But 200 doesn't change it.
Doesn't, huh?
It does not change what I've done. And now it becomes, like you just said, impact. Because now my goal shifts because I can't make that. I can't make that time sacrifice, that pain sacrifice change the benefit to the community. Because if I did that, it does not change the message or amplify what I can do in terms of the impact. And so now I shifted from, okay, I could do that. I can't figure out the reward, but now I can take what I have done and have the impact that I want to have. Because now my everybody always asks me what's next, and what's next doesn't have to be a physical and mental. For sure, physical. It could be more on the mental side, but for me, what's next is helping people achieve their version of what we did. And it's about helping people win the conversations that they're ultimately losing with themselves,
right?
To help them gain that confidence and that momentum, the success, the belief system, because everybody's walking around no hope, imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough.
Yep. Social
media has created this world of comparison, which is paralyzing people because we're fear of the judgment of not being good enough. And I'm not an expert on day one. Goodness gracious, no kidding. And so for me, what's next is truly helping people figure out the mindset shift, the belief systems that it would take for them to accomplish whatever their version is of what we did.
So you're going to stay in the sport and continue to be out there to just stay relevant in that journey.
Well, for me, I stay in the sport because and then the reason I don't want to do another Sufferfest is I have the beliefs.
A Sufferfest, that's what it's called?
I have the belief system that I can go do anything, but if I can't make those questions align. And so for me now, I kind of had to like take a step back and say, okay, why did I start this journey? And it was the love of the sport, the pursuit of speed and discipline and learning how to swim, bike, run, the strength training, the nutrition, the mindset, the recovery. There was so many facets to it that I loved. And I was like, I need to get back to my passion of why I began this, because I kind of got off track a little bit. And so now it
became a Sufferfest.
It became a Sufferfest. And it's blessed my life because I've learned that if I do have a gift, it's the gift of suffering and controlling my mind.
How did you figure out how to do that? Because I mean,
experience.
Here's and a lot of the millionaires and billionaires are not helping, because when they're interviewed, people ask them, what advice do you have for somebody just starting off? They say, only do what you love, because you only do what you love. You never work a day in your life, which is nonsense. It's not what anybody successful ever did.
No.
If you want to be
in fact,
elite,
you have to be willing to do the things you don't want to do in order to be successful.
Yeah. So you need the passion payoff in some form in order to be able to do it. Right. So there needs to be a payoff. I'm going to feel good about myself, or I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to do whatever. But there's going to be tons of uncomfortable things that are annoying, don't live up to expectations. And we live in a world that if they're not happy all the time with what they're doing, they say, you know what, I'm out.
You don't understand entrepreneurship.
Right.
That's the case.
Right. True story.
I mean, Instagram is glorified entrepreneurship.
And they think entrepreneurship is a selfie on the beach. That's what they think it is.
Dude, entrepreneurship and success is hella lonely. It's a grind. It's you have to be okay with losing 100 times more than you win, because that's the recipe. You have to be comfortable with failure. You have to be embrace the monotony of the basics over and over again. You have to be okay with not every moment being the sexy spotlight moment.
It's gritty, isn't it?
It is gritty. It's not for everybody. And they glamorize it on Instagram. It's this fake facade. And dude, there's a place for work and employment, and everybody has their own unique calling to do these. Dude, the world would collapse if everybody was an entrepreneur. It flat out would. And to be honest with you, most people are not cut out and shouldn't be entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Well, I think we all could. I think we were born, because the way I think of entrepreneurs are creators, people who are contributing in some way. They're bringing innovation. They're bringing passion.
Oh, there's a necessity for
there's a necessity.
100%.
I think we were born with it, but most of us allow that bully in our head to talk ourselves out of it. Right. I'll tell you a story that, as you were talking, that changed my career. I was 26, almost 27, and I'm just floundering around. I've been in network marketing for 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I decided, I talked with some leaders. It was a long time ago. And a few friends of mine said, we ever given it 100%, build a network marketing business? And I'm like, what would that look like? So here's what it was. We decided to go on what we called a 90-day run back then. And the 90-day run for me started at 8 a.m. every day and went till midnight every day. 7 days a week, 90 straight days. Only income producing activity was allowed. Okay. So if I was calling people, I was following up, I was doing presentations, I was getting people started, I was doing quick trainings, but if they had to be fast, it was go, 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 go. And I went from barely 6 figures to the next year 7 figures from that 190 day. So, and I learned so many lessons, and I'm sure they're similar to the lessons of you doing your 100, but nobody works that hard. Nobody around me. I was there before everybody started, and I stayed after everybody went home. I was by myself. I was making the phone calls by myself, doing the presentations by myself. Some people started with me. They didn't stop with me.
Yeah.
I got popular later, but during the time, everybody was making fun of me because I wasn't getting big results. I mean, when you figure out it's 16 hours a day times 30 days, 16 times 30 is 480 hours of work in the first month. And I had about 160 people on my team. And like, how much of a loser do you have to have 160 people that can join an inexpensive network marketing company? I brought in 20 of them, and they all brought in about 5. And I'm like, this sucks. I mean, I got to be the lowest paid person on earth.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't totally understand, I decided I was going to finish it. Like you decided you're going to finish stuff in the face of adversity. And everybody's saying, you need to adjust, you need to pivot, you need to course correct. You know, you need to create a lower goal that will still be a win. It's still going to be a win. You know, you don't have to do it all of these days.
Mm-hmm.
So that changed my life, and I've taught it to tons and tons of people to change their life. But I was doing this talk yesterday, and I mentioned you, and I said, you know, let's say you have to have 100 conversations a day with people who have the opportunity to join as a customer or join as a distributor every day. And you don't know where you're going to find them. You don't know what you're going to say to them. You don't have a script. You don't have it all figured out. But what's harder, doing an Ironman or 100 conversations? What's harder?
Is this a trick question?
No, to them, right?
Oh, sure.
What's harder? Ironman's way harder. Way harder. It's going to take 14 hours of your life if you are fit.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not fit, for me, I think it would pretty much be impossible to do it today, but I could do 100 conversations
For sure.
and it would change my life.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm still not sure that half of them got it really. Yeah. But comparing what's hard here in our business is just showing up and doing the income producing activity that works with your company. That's it.
Yeah.
At scale, but people get bored with it.
Well, and social media glamorizes again entrepreneurship in like 2 hours a day, and you can be successful. And in fact, to your point, and you didn't realize it at the time, but that's why you're successful today. Is those principles is you have to come out of balance.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to find this like perfect harmony and balance in everything that they do, and it's a facade.
Yeah.
And we were heavily criticized during the 50 and during the 100 for being out of balance. Yes, I was insanely out of balance, but I come back into balance. The problem becomes if you stay out of balance for a far too long of a time and you can't figure out how to get back into balance.
How long can you be out of balance and still be able to bounce back with family and friends and all that?
Well, just based off my experience, 101 days.
Yeah.
Is kind of the threshold. Yeah, for sure. Well, the 30 was a year long of sacrifice, but it was like these pockets where I'd come in and out of that imbalance, right? Like I'd go to Europe and race 3 races. I'd be gone for 3 weeks, come home, I'm home for a full week, right?
Right.
So I could kind of do those checks and balances. And in fact, I just did this seminar and I didn't know this at the time, but well, you impact people that you don't know you've impacted until a year later because they were too embarrassed to say something to you now. And then you get this message and they were like, hey, you don't know me, but these are the changes I made because of what you said. I just got this message the other day and this kid said, hey, after I I was really struggling in my real estate business. And after you got off stage, something you said switched in my head. And I made a commitment to myself to do 100 calls every single day. It didn't matter how long it was going to take me. It didn't matter how many no's I got. I had to do 100 calls. And the 100 days ended. He was the number one producer. He was richer than he'd ever been in his life. He'd made connections and relationships that he'd never believed was possible. And he had more yeses that were unplanned or unconventional that he never would have had he not come out of balance and committed to those 100 days of like sacrifice and just doing the task.
Yeah.
And it's changed his career.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something that we said. It was the exact same concept that you did. And I would challenge anybody to do what you just said. In fact, I sign every single one of my books, Go All In.
Yeah.
And if you come out of, I should sign my book, Get Out of Balance. If you come out of balance and you go all in for a certain period of time, whatever that is for you, whatever reasonable, but make it a stretch, you can literally change your life. And I tell people even just do XYZ for 1 year.
Yeah.
And you will be a different person. Your life will be different. Your opportunities and future will be different, but most people aren't willing to do it.
And what I say a couple things. A year's fine, but people usually can't hold all in for a year. Like you couldn't hold, Ironmans for more than 101 days or whatever. You maybe could have, you maybe do 200, but you're a super exception. What I found in our world is 30, 60, 90 days, 45 days, something like that.
I'm reading
where it's all in.
And I'm reading this book right now called 12 Weeks in a Year, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And the concept is like, go all in for 12 weeks, hit the reset button, figure out what that looks like, take a step back, next 12-week section. And instead of like setting these year-long goals, you do that. And so my belief system is like, let's figure out how to take those 12-week blocks and put them into a year.
Yeah.
And then, but like you said, you got to,
there's
I'm
a
successful
preparation phase.
Yeah. Well, and it's being focused on that one pinpoint thing.
Yeah.
So let's figure out, let's take 12-week blocks or whatever it is that's realistic for a person to go in. And then let's accomplish those blocks over the course of the year and be pinpointed on one thing in each one of those things. And your life will change and you'll be different because success breeds success and confidence breeds confidence. And all of a sudden you have momentum. The problem is people, New Year's comes around. I hate New Year's, but New Year's comes around and people are like, these are the 10 things I'm going to do.
Right.
And I'm like, just add one every month and gain momentum. And by the end of the year, you've got 12 new habits that you've started and created. Yeah. And now you take that momentum into the next year. And so I think, you're exactly right, but you have to come out of balance. And by doing so, make sure you come back into it, but that'll change your life. And that all in that you went in, it changed your life.
100%.
And I've
done several of them. I've taught thousands of people how to do it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
But I want to talk about that coming out of balance and how do you maintain relationships? Because here's what I coach, right? I coach 4 phases of a 90-day run campaign. Phase 1 is preparation. This is when you make a decision. And in preparation phase, that's when you negotiate with your family. You sit down and say, is it okay for dad to go on this run? Is it okay for dad to try and break this record? Can you support me? Can you push me? Can you encourage me? Because it's going to be a little uncomfortable. And, your belief in me while we go do this means the world to me. Here's what I think it's going to mean for the family. Do I have your support?
So it's not, for me, it wasn't asking for their support. It was including them in the journey.
Yeah, but there's probably a more emotionally intelligent process in
my kids
getting their support.
My kids were young.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't understand, will you support dad in this? And you're going to get XYZ. And so what I did this exact the trick that you're talking about. I went to Walmart and I just bought the biggest map of the United States I could find. And before my kids came home from school, I put the map up on the wall. And I had 5 dry erase markers for each kid. Mm-hmm. And then I had my computer there and I said, okay, kids, this is the United States. I said, do you want to go to every single state? And then I'm like, let's start searching online. Like, what do you want to do in each one of those states? Like, what's something cool that we could do in each one of those states? And now all of a sudden I didn't have to ask for their support because they were super fired up and excited to have the baddest ass summer vacation they've ever
Involved.
had in their lives, and they're involved in the journey.
Mm.
And then when I would go on a longer run, I'd be like, "Hey son, grab your bike. Let's go on come support me on this bike ride,
Mm-hmm.
and let's go have some conversations and rides." So now they're part of the training process,
Mm.
and they were teaching and educating all these things as we're doing it. So my family never felt like it was out of balance. They were part of this amazing thing. And then when we were going through each and every single state, dude, my 2 oldest girls are selling shirts and they're part of this thing. And my dad's doing this, and we're going to run the 5K together. And so it became this family project and adventure. They never felt, we were criticized for like child abuse.
Sure.
You know, you're dragging your kids across the country. Dude, you ask any one of my kids, they had the most amazing time. You think my son as an 8-year-old was mad that he was on Netflix in a documentary?
Right.
You think that's something he didn't want to tell his friends at school? Dude, I'm in Netflix, guys.
Yeah.
Come hang out with me, you know? So it's just crazy. So to your point, yeah, it's about communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's about communicating and involving the team in what you're doing.
Love that.
And that became a huge thing for us. And my kids have played an incredible role in every part of what we've done.
And your wife
over the past 15.
is a boss.
Nothing happens without this. And in fact, I was just telling someone in the room prior to coming on that we just finished writing the screenplay.
Yeah.
But it's going to be from my wife's perspective.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's really, really cool. It's going to be this strong female power role. Because a lot of people know my story and kind of what I went through. But she's the hero in all of this. None of this happens without her. And we cover some of it in the first book, Redefine Impossible. And people get a glimpse of what was happening in the 50 and team members that didn't have the vision and quit and abandoned us. And she had to step up.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, no, this isn't James's dream. This is our dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to step up and do my part.
Mm-hmm.
And she ultimately ended up saving the 50. Because it was interesting, because as we were, those 2 years that we were caring for the elderly woman, she was actually in school. She went back to school,
Mm-hmm.
and with 5 kids, got her psychology degree. And so she wasn't involved in any of the preparation for the 50.
So has she figured you out?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Good.
But I had made a promise to her, and I said, look, this is going to be an amazing summer vacation for you guys. I've got a team. I'm just going to do the Ironman every single day. You just take the kids and do something fun every single day. That got derailed real quick when chaos hit, and she was like, my role just changed, and she had to step up and do it. So it ultimately, I failed in communication leading
Mm-hmm.
into that, which caused even more problems and chaos. And so now we've learned that skill set with our kids, and with between her and I, communication has to be at a really all-time high.
Yeah.
And for us, we communicated with our kids like, it's going to be a fun adventure. This is what we're going to do. And these are the possible benefits to sacrificing these things. And thankfully, all of them came to fruition. And my kids are just phenomenal kids because of being part of this journey. And I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I would never not give them a front row seat to everything we experienced. The failures, the missteps, the pain, the agony, all of it was a gift to them, especially as they're older now and they're navigating. And I can contrast them at their age now to their peers and where they are in life compared to some of the other ones that are struggling. They're head and shoulders above
deep
people.
life experiences.
100%.
I've got a 4-part structure that I use for any campaign that I'm going to be involved in. And it's what I teach. And tell me if this is similar to what you do or if you have any adjustments to it.
Sure.
So there's preparation phase. And preparation's when you kind of clear the decks of when you're going to be doing your campaign. You get rid of obligations. Somebody else is going to take care of that. You've got, you involve your family, get them involved, friends and family. You prepare everybody in your life that this is going to happen. This is happening on such and such a date.
Yep.
And then there's a pre-launch phase, which is where you're team building, you're figuring out infrastructure, you're figuring out logistics, you're figuring out plans. You can kind of involve some people early that might be part of it. Somebody might be biking with you. Somebody might be helping with security or whatever. In my case, you start recruiting, you start building a team, but it's whisper campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I'm going to do this thing.
Sure,
you want to be part of it with me. So preparation 1, pre-launch 2, then the actual campaign. And that's head down, all in, no distractions. Yep. You don't look to the right, to the left. You just
pinpoint.
Do what you have to do. and what other people are not willing to do.
Yep.
And
Which
then,
is most people.
And then post campaign, post launch. And that is when you reset your body, reset your mind, and pick the next thing.
Yep.
Whatever that next thing is. So is that similar in structure?
Yeah, 100%. But with me, people watch phase 3 and then they move on to the next shiny object for phase 4, which is arguably one of the hardest phases for us.
For sure.
In what we do, because these all-in campaigns are very physical, but they're extremely mental.
Yeah.
And our brains are so powerful, they protect us, or my brain protected me from feeling the actual damage and trauma that I was doing. And in fact, I was in a lot of trouble post 100 mentally. I went down, just spiraled.
So what did that look like?
Anxiety, depression, confusion. I'd actually broken my brain. Just from trauma. I had a very severe bike accident on day 59,
Saw it, yeah.
Knocked unconscious, have multiple concussions in my career. That was a big one. But I didn't tell anybody because I knew I had a goal and a finish line.
To finish, we had 41 left to do.
I had 41 left. I actually cracked my L5 in that accident, had a bulging disc. And so concussion, bulging disc, and nobody knew.
And still your ankle issue.
And I had incredible ankle and shin issues. I was literally at that point, I was waiting for the step my leg was going to break. And so we were dealing with a ton of things. And then obviously we persevere, we push through, have the hero moment, and then everybody moves on.
There's no part in you that ever said, you know what, if I break my body, this is not worth it.
No, we never felt that I was in danger of long-term, because I know how powerful the mind and the body are, and you can always repair. And so our purpose and our mission and our greater calling was to raise funds and awareness for people that are being sex trafficked.
Yeah.
And ultimately we ended up raising over $1 million.
Which is the Underground Railroad thing?
Underground Railroad. Yeah. So we ended up raising over $1 million that has gone on to free human beings. So the way that I was frameworking it was, okay, I know my suffering is going to end in 41 more days, but these individuals have no idea when their suffering's
You had a higher purpose.
I had an insane higher purpose.
Even though you'd already, I mean, here's the thing that blew my mind. You'd already broke the record.
Yeah. But I didn't finish what I started.
Yeah.
And that's our number one rule in our house.
Yeah. It's so hard for me, even like, so many people get comfortable in the network marketing space and they've already broken the record. They're already at the top, rank in their company. And they're like, I should be grateful.
Records, we're setting new standards.
Yeah. Say that again.
We're not breaking records. We're setting new standards. And so after the 100 happened and everybody moves on, I was in a lot of trouble because our brains are so powerful at protecting us. All of a sudden it let go and said, now I'm going to show you. I'm going to reveal to you all the damage you've done.
Do you think it's similar? I heard like the astronauts that came back from the moon.
Yeah.
They had very severe emotional difficulty because where do you go from there?
Right. It's this huge letdown. And the other problem too is everything was so structured and I knew exactly what I was doing every single day. And then you come out of it and you're like, and now what? And like, what's the next target? And 200 didn't make sense. And all these things didn't make sense. And so what do I do now? And so, in fact, my brain was stuck in fight or flight. I couldn't get to parasympathetic. And so every single day I was exhausted because my brain was just firing. And also my brain got trapped in that crash day and I lost sense of my surroundings and my equilibrium. My brain always thought I was crashing. And so my back is fused, but I still have back pain because I have this spatial awareness problem. And my brain got so used to sending the pain signals that it just was like, well, I'm just going to continue to send a pain signal, even though it doesn't need to. And so our brains and our bodies and the way that they function and relate in relationship to each other is fascinating. It's allowed me to go down this like biohacking route. And anyways, it took me over 3 years to fully recover from the 100
really
to where I felt normal again. I got very out of shape. I put on 30 pounds. I became lethargic.
And you're very out of shape as well, like 12% body fat or something?
No.
Is that what it is? Come on, be honest.
I've got some pictures that would shock you.
No, they wouldn't.
I promise you they would.
Whatever, bro.
And so it was an insane fight to go back. I had to go through to lots of intense therapy. I had to go to neurologist, rewire the neurological pathways of my brain, which I think is a gift. And if people recognize that our brains are malleable and our bodies are incredibly transformable. And if we choose to make the sacrifices and do the work, you can be a different person. The person who you are today is a reflection of the decisions you made 6 months ago. So if you want to be a different person, let's take your go all in challenge for the next whatever months and months and months and make the changes that you made. So 6 months from now, you can look back and go, that was it. It was because of that commitment and the changes and the system that I followed to become the person. And then every 6 months you can go, I'm a better person.
Let me ask a couple of questions about this because it's very interesting. I work with and coach a lot of very top performers in the network marketing space, and they don't have a bike crash, but they'll have some form of trauma. They go on a big run, the company lets them down. Company goes out of business. Yeah. Or they make a huge change to the compensation plan, or half of their team leaves, joins another company and starts telling lies about them. They get stabbed in the back. Yep. And you went through this 3 years of wilderness after your big push. Yeah. Some of them, many of them leave the profession. Not many, but some leave the profession, at least for a season, because they're so disillusioned. Yeah. This was not worth it. I did all this stuff and this is how I get repaid. What I'm curious about, and the champions reframe and say, hey, that's fine. That's life. This is normal in business. We build and we rebuild. That's what we do.
That's what life is.
Yeah. That's what life is. Going through your 101 days and then having a 3-year kind of wilderness experience. Yeah. Having lived that now, what could you do differently so you wouldn't have that letdown that was so enormous if you ever did it again or something like it?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, I don't know, because I lost my way longer than I needed to. And it was probably a lot of ego involved in not getting the help that I needed to, thinking, I can do this on my own. Like I'm that.
You're tough.
I'm tough.
Don't tell me I have weakness.
Don't tell me my brain's broken. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I think the thing I would have changed was especially as a male, I would have humbled myself earlier and went and seeked the help that I needed.
Like is it like a mental coach? Is it
for me, it was specifically people that had an understanding of how the brain worked.
Is it spiritual at all?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause a big question I get is, okay, are these challenges that you do, are they more physical or are they more mental? And I'm like, well, it's 100% of both. Yeah. And neither of them matter unless it's under the umbrella of spirituality.
It cracks me up when people say, being a top level endurance athlete is 90% mental. Nope.
Baloney. Dude, if you're 300 pounds and you're the most mentally tough person on the planet, I don't care how tough you are mentally. You ain't dragging a 300-pound body through 140.6 miles a day for a quarter of a year. And also, if you're the most physically fit person on the planet and you're just a mental dumpster fire, you're also not going to do it. So the truth is you have to be 100% of both, and they complement each other. Right. And both of them are dragging each other through it, but it doesn't matter unless you're under the umbrella of spirituality. And that's my personal experience. And
how did that manifest? The umbrella of spirituality.
Yeah. I've never prayed so much in my life. I've never been so connected. I've never felt like I was being guided or lifted through those impossible moments. I never felt alone, even though I was by myself, in both in my head and in my heart and on the road. But I was never alone. And just to have that level of comfort and compassion. And I think that's a gift for anybody that's struggling through life is you're not alone. Yeah. And that's why we named our book Iron Hope, is because there's always hope. Yeah. If you keep showing up, if you keep checking the boxes, if you keep the understanding and perspective that every day is a gift, you're good, man.
Yeah. I saw a coach, I can't remember which coach, a famous coach here in the United States. He talked about 3 different types of athletes. He said, first group are superior gifted athletes with a superior attitude. Enjoy those. You're not going to get very many. Yeah. They're very, very, very rare. Second group are superior, unbelievable talent athletes with a bad attitude. Yep. Those are coach killers. Those will destroy a team. They'll destroy a coach. their unmet potential will be the most frustrating part of your entire life.
For sure.
And then the third group are average athletes, not superior, not amazing, average athletes with a superior attitude and mindset. And those you win championships with. You know, you take those that they're 80 or 90% of your team with hopefully one or two that is a superior athlete with a superior attitude, that you can win championships with. And I was like,
100%.
I could relate to the less than superior who can come in with an attitude like you did earlier on. You just strike me as if you say you're gonna do something, it's already done. It's just, you just have to add time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
well, and to your point, after the 50, everyone was like, they saw the headline, right? They didn't see the work and the 2 world records before that and all the groundwork and the foundation. And they were like, oh, that dude's different. Genetically, he has an advantage for why he did that. And they convinced me that I was different. And so I was like, I got to find out. I'm going to go get epigenetics. I'm going to get all these tests done. And
are you genetically different at all?
I went and got the test done.
And?
I got the results back.
And?
I'm a below average white Canadian, but I've got a heart. I've got a belief system. I don't have a single genetic advantage that allowed me to do the things that I was able to do. I showed up and I outworked everybody and I gave it the time respect that it deserved. And I came out on top. I'm the fourth category. I'm the guy that has zero talent, zero, and outworked and outlasted and outplayed.
So it's you're that third athlete.
Fourth.
Yeah. The one you didn't have zero talent. Come on.
I have zero genetic advantage.
Well, not a genetic advantage, but I guess, I mean, you take your mindset, put it to your skill set, and then just add time.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I was a senior and there was this new kid that came up in wrestling and he was terrible. I'm talking no talent, like the most awkward kid, had 2 left feet, couldn't string together 3 moves together. I graduate, I go on, I start living my life. I come back to visit the team and I didn't recognize this kid. I didn't know who he was. And coach said, hey, this is such and such. And I was like, that kid just won the national championship and he went undefeated. And nobody would have ever said that kid was it. But guess what he did? He didn't miss a single practice. He believed in himself. He was the first in, he was last out, and just had a passion for it. And he ended up being the most valuable, most valuable wrestler at the national championships that he won. And nobody would have ever said this kid would have done it. And so he's that fourth category where like zero talent, but a ton of heart, a lot of work ethic, and just pinpointed on what he wanted. And he just kept doing it. It took the time. It took him 4 years, but he was the best. So
I'll tell you one quick story, and then I've got a personal question for you. For me, you know, I've been looking at this as an opportunity for me to grow.
Okay.
So what was interesting about me growing up before I found the network marketing space is I was average at everything. I was average. I'd love to play games, but never disciplined enough in order to be able to really be great at the games. I was enough to play. So I played everything. And I loved, you know, I think there's 2 kinds of people, gamers and hanger-outers. People like just hanging around, talking about nonsense. I don't understand those people. Yeah. If we're sitting down, it's got to have a purpose of some sort. Fill me up, or let me fill you up, or whatever. Sure. Let's learn something. So I didn't understand formal education. Bottom 10% of my class.
I don't know how I got out of high school.
Right, 1.7 GPA. Get me out of here.
Oh, dude. I think they just let me graduate because I was an outstanding wrestler. Legit.
See, and I wasn't.
I look at my stuff and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Thank you. Whoever it was that signed the piece of paper that got me out of high school.
I was the same. You know, when everybody walked across the stage to get their diplomas, they got in this little packet thing. I got the packet, but the diploma wasn't in there yet because they hadn't decided if they're going to let me go or not.
There you go.
So it said, I'll let the world take them. And then I proceeded to have 18 jobs by the time I'm 23 years old, you know, so I didn't get any traction at all. And then I found the network marketing space and I started to get traction, but it wasn't until I did that big 90-day run that I broke out of average, that all in moment. I thought I'd made a lot of those decisions in the first 3 years that I was building, but I didn't really. I was hoping that the business would make up for my lack of
There's some rationalizations and justifications in there.
A million times.
Yeah.
A million times.
But we don't think it because we nailed it 5 out of the 7 days.
Yes.
And it's those 2 days that completely derail you.
Yes. So I finally did that. And then I learned about compound interest on my own self. I learned about getting a little bit better every day. I learned about plan, do, review and the scientific method of every aspect of my life. I'll plan to review this conversation, everything, made a plan for it, doing it now. We'll review it later.
Sure.
How can I do it better the next time?
Yeah.
All this stuff. How can I give value to this guy in some way as he's building his brand? There's got to be something that I can do there. So it's fascinating to me that, coming from nobody expected me to win, especially I was in the profession for 3.5 years. They're looking at me and like, nah, I don't think he's got it. He's shown us who he is. Yeah. And I hadn't yet. It was in me, but I hadn't done it. Right. And once I did it, I became somebody. And it's just that built so much confidence for me to start taking more and more and more and more
Sure.
risks.
Yeah.
I already had it built in to not care what people thought because nobody thought anything good for me anyway. That was a gift.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So now I have to ask a personal trainer question.
Here we go.
I'm 61 years old. I am about 19 or 20% body fat. Okay. 2 years ago, I was 34% body fat.
Congrats.
I've added about 20 pounds of muscle in that period of time, last 2 years. And my cardiovascular strength is not amazing. I did okay getting in the gym to lift, not as much with the cardio. I think for me, getting under 15% body fat is like my obsessive goal, or at least it's my target.
Okay.
What's the best way for me to get there? Be as fit as possible, and lean as possible, so I can live stronger, longer.
Fit and lean are two different things.
I'd like to be both. I'd like to have
Yep.
a general fitness. I'd like to be reasonably strong. I don't need to, I want to be strong just to be able to live a better life.
Sure.
And I want to be lean because I think it's going to be good for my body. If you could force me to do something that I could do and would get me to my results, I will say where I struggle the most is nutrition.
Sure.
Because I'll be doing good. My brain will leave my body. I'll eat something. I'll feel bad about it and say, tomorrow I won't do that anymore. And I just repeat that over and over and over.
Yeah.
I'm usually a boss until about 6 p.m.
Sure.
Absolute boss during the day. And then there's a sneaky 700 or 800 calories that kick in after that.
700 or 800.
Seriously. So, I mean, like it's healthy calories, but it's like,
It doesn't matter what kind of calories.
yeah. But like I say, so I'm just being honest with you here.
Yeah.
So what program would you put me on in order to be able to get me where I need to go?
In your network marketing business and in your all-in phase, did you track your inputs and your outputs?
Loosely.
Really? And you were still successful?
Well, it was just everything I had to do. I just literally turn my brain off.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm going to talk to as many people as I can during these 16 hours.
Yeah.
And wherever that leads me, I will go, but I'm literally not going to do anything that isn't income producing activity.
Great. Okay.
None. Zero.
Okay. So
but I didn't count how many. I just I'm going to do those 6. It was more about the hours and the type of tasks than it was how many tasks.
So you'd set up some non-negotiables for yourself.
It was really the 16 hours and then learning to only do my business and turn the rest of the world off.
Okay. So you can take that exact same principle and put parameters around yourself and say, I'm only eating during this window. So it's like intermittent fasting, right?
Yep.
So like if you were to say after 7 p.m., it's a non-negotiable. I'm not eating it.
No food. Yeah.
No food. It's a non-negotiable.
Would you recommend something like that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You have to give your body time to reset. So the biggest thing is anybody that, and this is a business and entrepreneur kind of audience, I believe. Yeah.
100%.
And so nobody's running or should be running their business to where they don't know dollars out, dollars in. And if you're at an age where you're planning for retirement, you're probably very disciplined and have a system in place to set that up and you know your metrics and what's coming in and out. But for some reason with our health, we don't track metrics. We wing it, right? There's no system in place. I'm going to give you a challenge. For the next 30 days, nothing can go in your body without putting it into MyFitnessPal tracking app. Nothing. If it goes into you, you just have to record it. So don't even change what you're doing. This is going to be an education process for you. Don't change anything. Just legit and honestly track what goes in your body. Now you have a baseline and a knowledge about what's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And
most MyFitnessPal is the tracking app?
MyFitnessPal. And it's free. There's a free version and then there's a paid version. You can do it with the free version. Anything that you can scan bars on packages. I weigh all my food. I know how many fats, how many carbs, how many proteins I get. In fact, I've created something that I'm actually releasing in the next 2 weeks. It's going to be free for everybody. And it tracks exactly to you specifically how many calories you're burning based on the workouts that you're doing. And then using MyFitnessPal as a tool to track everything that's going in.
What's it called?
My thing?
Yeah.
Lock in 365.
Okay. And I'm going to be part of the beta?
If you will.
All right, cool.
We're looking right now. Next week, we're going to say first 100 people that need to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah.
It's totally free. We're going to coach you 100% through it. In fact, we're going to make it free for everybody forever, but I need 100 people to beta test it.
Right.
The next 30 days for you is just going to be an education for you to, because most people have no idea, zero concept of how many calories are in whatever they're eating.
Right.
They'll just go and they'll grab a handful of nuts. So they're at the event and they'll grab a protein bar and they eat it. And that protein bar is 220 calories. And they do that 3 times and that's 660 calories. All of a sudden you're at a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what anybody says, it's calories in and calories out when you're starting.
Yeah.
And in order to lose weight, you have to be in a deficit. It's just flat out science.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in a deficit to lose weight. As you progress and your knowledge and education becomes greater, now the quality of those calories, and now we're talking about health, that becomes crucial and it matters, right? Because now what we eat turns into performance and how we feel.
Right.
So there's a difference between educating yourself and understanding what a calorie is and how much it is and what it is that we're eating and how much of it is. And then turning the next evolution into that is the type that we're eating. And so I need you to fully go all in and understand how many calories you're eating. And then you're going to break down how many of those calories fall into fats, proteins, and carbs.
Yeah. Figure out the macros.
Figure out the macros. Macros are king. And you're going to quickly realize, oh, that's why I'm sitting at this. And that's why I keep going up and down, because of those 600 extra calories that are happening in between. So a parameter that I would give you is, look, you're going to go on a 14-hour fast every single day,
mm-hmm.
which means you're going to stop eating at 7 p.m. and you're not going to start eating until 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, it gives your body a system to reset. And then you're going to start tracking everything that you eat from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And now we're going to start to educate ourselves as to what we're actually consuming. And now you're going to start turning it into a system. And then it becomes inputs and outputs.
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat more food. Great. You got to move more. You have to earn that consumption.
Right.
And here's the gift of life. Every single day you wake up and you get a new economy of food that you can eat. And then you're going to start to realize what foods are more beneficial, more satiating, more healthy. Because you could go, that's what's great about macros. You can eat anything you want, but it's got to fall inside the parameters, right? So you can go eat cheesecake, but you're going to quickly realize that piece of cheesecake is 400 calories and you're going to be hungry in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can eat some real food and that is a monster plate of 400 calories and you're going to be really satiated for a long time. You're going to start to feel better. You're going to sleep better. All these things are happening. Your hormones are going to start to fall into place. And so that's my challenge to you. And that's the path to you to get to that goal that you want to achieve. Download MyFitnessPal and just start to track whatever you're eating. Non-negotiable. You're done eating at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I can do that part. And then the tracking part, if I'm honest, you say
comes an excuse.
Most people wing it. I wing my whole life.
Yeah.
I wing trainings. I mean, sometimes I have to put together presentations, but I normally don't. And it's kind of worked out. You know, like I can't tell you how much money I have in the bank. Because other people manage that. I can't tell you where I'm speaking, but next week because other people manage that.
But nobody else is going to manage your health.
I know. Well,
nobody else is going to manage your health. No, unless you want to pay me to follow you around.
Come on, move in. I got an extra room right here.
I'll spoon feed you. Here's a question I have for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an out of shape, fat, lazy, thoroughbred racehorse?
Well, I was one until like
an actual horse.
I know. I was one until like 3 years ago when I said enough is enough.
Yeah.
I got to start making a change and made a dramatic change. But I was one of those, and the disconnect always bothered me. I can't be the person that I say that I am and have this body represent me.
Yeah.
So I created accountability structures and projects and this and that and little progress here. And then in between those projects, I'd lose some traction.
I'm going to push back on you a little bit.
All right. Thanks.
You're good.
Yeah.
Do you want to be great?
Yes.
Everybody can be good.
Yes.
Few people can be great.
No, I get it.
And in order to be great, you have to be meticulous in what you're doing. You have to know your inputs and your outputs. So you just got to wake up and go, I want to be good or great today.
What should my macros be? I'm 210 right now, 5'11".
So that's
I
just
have about 160 pounds of lean muscle.
Yeah. So that's just going to be a process that we go through in the onboarding with the Lock-In 365. It'll ask you 5 real simple step questions. And by the end of it, it's going to tell you your exact TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. And that's going to be your baseline. And then so we take that TDEE and we minus out 500 calories, that puts you into your deficit. So now your goal or your baseline every single day is your TDEE minus 500 calories. And now when you move and exercise, you get credit, and you can add back in 50% of that credit that you earned. So it's checks and balances.
So 50% of whatever you burned off in calories you can eat.
Let's say you burned 400 calories in that workout. You can add 200 back in. So let's say your TDEE is 2,000 calories. That's what it takes energy wise for you just to exist.
Yep.
We're going to negative 500 calories to put you at a deficit so you can lose weight. So now you got 1,500 calories. That's all you can eat today. So now you've got an economy, and now you can choose how you spend your money, quote unquote, your money.
1 pint of ice cream or actual food.
Exactly. Yeah. And then let's say you're like, man, I'm really hungry. I should go work out for an hour, which you should anyways for your health. And let's say you burn 600 calories. You get to add back in 300. So now you're going from 1,500 to 800 calories, 1,800 calories.
Yep.
And that's your non-negotiable. That's what it is.
You burn 1,000 calories, you can get 500
back. You get 500 back. Yeah.
Well, I was always like, if you burn 1,000, you get 1,000 back.
No.
Because you're still going to be at that 500 deficit, right?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't, huh?
No.
Oh, see, I'm learning something.
Yeah.
All right. You get the last word.
Wait, are you going to accept my challenge?
I accept.
There we go. I'm in. Let's go.
I'm going to be the beta.
You're going to return and report.
Yeah. And
you're going to hold them accountable, girl? All right, here we go.
And I have to train my cardiovascular health more than I do. That is another major, major goal.
So cardiovascular health becomes a byproduct of just showing up and doing the work.
Yep.
Number one thing that most Americans should be doing is one, anybody that's at the beginning of their journey, you can literally change your life by tracking your inputs and outputs in food and just going on a walk every single day. If you did that, you will lose weight. Step number 2, next level, if we're gamifying it, going to another level, strength training is the next important thing. Science has proven it. Later in life, the more lean muscle mass you have, the more lifestyle you can have, the more longevity you're going to have.
Yep.
There's a great documentary on Netflix called Blue Zones, and it's the highest concentration of centurions, people that lived over 100, and they kind of compared these regions that were very different from each other and was trying to find a commonality. One of the commonalities between all of those was movement and working physically your entire life. And that leads to sustainability. So in our very comfortable lifestyle, that means we have to conjure it up sometimes because we're not in the working fields or things like that. Strength training. Strength training is one of the most important things you can do. Then we can add in cardio. So at anybody's beginning journey, check your inputs, your outputs, and just go for walks.
Yeah.
That will change your life. Then add in strength training, then add in strength training and a cardio session, right? Now you're talking about an entire package.
Go all in, get out of balance, change your relationship with hard things.
Win the conversations with yourself.
Win the conversations with yourself. Beat that bully in your brain.
No, love the bully.
Love the bully?
Yeah, he's your buddy.
All right.
He's letting you know that you're showing up.
Yeah, he's kind of
learn how to communicate
an
with
alternate
the bully.
coach.
Yeah.
Kind of.
He's letting you know when you're showing up, and then you have to have the skill set to silence the
Yeah.
bully and keep moving forward. Like,
Yeah.
hey, thank you. I appreciate you letting me know I'm doing something hard. Now shut the hell up.
Yeah.
I got work to do.
Right, right. This is all great, and I really appreciate you coming in. I know I'm glad you swung through Vegas. If you swing through again, let's have another conversation and talk about the next journey or the next book or the next film that you have coming out or the next app or anything else. I'll make sure everybody has everything that you mentioned in the show notes and ways to be able to connect with you.
Cool, man. I appreciate
whether you want to speak, and you do a lot of speaking.
Yes, it's full time.
Yeah.
I do over 70 events a year.
70 events a year. So I think you'd be great. coming and speaking for any organization.
100%.
So thanks for coming and chatting with us.
Appreciate you, Eric.
I appreciate it. So that's my conversation with James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. Listen, go check out what he has in the show notes. Find out what he does. I would highly recommend you watching the documentary, Conquer, it's called, that you can look him up, the Iron Cowboy documentary about his 100 Ironmans in 100 days. I've watched both of them. The other one is the Iron Cowboy. It's about the 50 Ironman competitions in 50 states over the course of 50 days. So logistically and physically amazing. So many great lessons in this episode. If you know somebody who's ready to kind of challenge themselves, he challenged me, which is great. I love being challenged. And I'm challenging you. Number one, what's the next big thing you're going to do? Number two, how are you going to approach difficult tasks as you move forward in the future? Those really, really matter. So if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, might be challenged by it, make sure you forward this to them, pay it forward. I think we can all work together in order to become better. Okay? So go out there, be tough, set higher standards, and I'll see you next time.